All right, welcome back to the program. Dr. Franklin Ngwu, an associate professor of strategy, corporate governance, and risk management at Lagos Business School, is joining me right now from the commercial nerve center of the country, Lagos. Dr. Ngwu, good to have you on the program. Welcome. Dr. Ngwu, can you hear me?
Good morning, Nancy. Good morning, Nigerians. I'm hearing you, but it's breaking a little bit.
Okay. So how are you and how is Lagos today?
We are here. We are fine. Hoping and praying for a better Nigeria.
As Nigerians, we are prayerful, we are coping people, and we are resilient people. No matter the times, we still come out strong. No wonder we were one of the happiest people in the world at a time. But anyway, let's get started because we have quite a lot of things to take a look at least within the next 25 minutes if we can. Let me get your views on the recession. I haven't spoken to you in a while. The country, Nigeria's economy, recorded as GDP growth, negative growth of about 3.62% in the third quarter of 2020. What's your assessment?
Of course, it's not a good news. It's not a good development, but it was expected that we'll go into recession, given our precarious situation in different dimensions. And also, it has been escalated or exacerbated by COVID-19. So it was known and given that we'll go into a recession. And of course, what we're also supposed to ask is, what did the previous actions that we took, and then what should we do now to take the country out of recession?
Doctor, do you think that COVID-19 should be totally blamed for Nigeria's economic recession? Because we had our own systemic issues before COVID-19. So it seems that COVID-19 is a very, it's an excuse, an easy excuse to blame for the recession.
I'm not sure that COVID-19 should be entirely blamed. What COVID-19 did is more or less to exacerbate our situation. So I think that even without COVID-19, we were almost heading to a recession as well, because so many factors and so many issues have not really been properly addressed, have not been properly attended to in Nigeria. So COVID-19 contributed, but it is not the main reason why we went into a recession. So as I said before, there are many actions that we didn't take. There are many actions that we took that all contributed to this situation. So, and what we are supposed to be doing now is how can we build confidence and hope in the economy so that the Nigerians can actually believe that we have a country. So that confidence is very, very important. So what we have now is beyond economic solutions. So we will not grow out of recession just using economic. So it requires economics, sociology, law, psychology, and other a kind of hybrid approach to really build confidence and to build the hope so that people can believe in the economy and start really investing again. In terms of what we didn't do before, of course, we didn't, certain factors were not properly addressed. A clear example is our monetary policy. A clear example is our fiscal policies. A clear example is our foreign exchange management. A clear example is the border closure, economic recovery and growth plan. All these were not properly planned, attended to, and executed.
Doctor, it's quite interesting that you said that we need a hybrid of solutions that will not just be economically based, but a bit of economics, a bit of social, psychology, cultural, and perhaps the big elephant in the room, the political part of it. Speak to me in about 1 minute and 30 seconds of the potpourri of what you have just said and what it should look like.
Sorry, could you say it again, please? I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Okay, I'm asking this question based on what you answered earlier. In terms of coming out of this recession should not just be based on economics alone. It should be on social, cultural, political, as well as, what else again did you say, psychological. So can you just give me a summary of what those kind of solutions should be that cuts across what you've just said?
As I said before, if you look at the way, let me even start with the foreign Naira depreciation. If you look at the way Naira is behaving, you find out that it is not really purely economics. So what we're supposed to do first is how do we build hope and confidence in the economy? And that is why I said that it requires solutions that are beyond economics. Because many people will be saying government should spend through, government should borrow and increase spending in terms of quantitative easing, government should cut costs and all that. They are very important factors, but they are not sufficient. What I mean by a hybrid of approach is that we have to rethink so many things in Nigeria. One is that we have to rethink the security architecture and create a more inclusive government. We have to show sign. The government needs to show a sign that they are a listening government. We need more clear and transparent foreign exchange management, unified exchange rate. In fact, even if possible, I think it is time for Naira to be floated so that it will be purely determined by the market, and that will give us more opportunities in terms of managing so many factors. We should also quickly think about how do we devolve powers to the states to enable and liberate the states to actually contribute more to the society. If not, we can actually identify 3 or 4 factors in terms of moving some items from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. Then we should also be more serious and focused with agriculture. We should also rethink border closure, when should we open it, and many, many other factors. As I said, what is very important is that government should sit back and say, what are the things that we're supposed to do from economics, from law, from sociology, from psychology, a hybrid approach. We should also rethink in terms of how do we quickly sell government assets. We also have to have a clear statement in terms of how do we, with regards to our fiscal and monetary policies. All this needs to be done, and it needs to be done quickly. It's not something, where we are now is not what we just say, okay, let's borrow more money, let's spend more money. Of course, we can't even borrow more because we're almost at the peak of borrowing today.
Doctor, it seems to me that some of the solutions which you said is not something that will be done in a day or in a month. Some of these solutions that you postulated now are solutions that should be made to long term, because we're talking about even getting Nigerians out of the recession perhaps in the next quarter or in the first quarter of 2020, as the government is so optimistic, or even the central bank governor so optimistic, and Zainab Ahmed, Minister of Finance, optimistic. So some of these solutions will not just be done in this quarter, which is ending by the end of this month. So your solutions are perhaps mid to long term. Can we really, what solutions are short-term solutions or the near-term solutions that we can quickly adopt to get us out?
I agree with you. What I enumerated include both short-term, medium-term, and long-term solutions. So what we are supposed to do is to sit back and say, which of them will come under short-term solutions, which of them will come under medium-term solutions, which of them will come under long-term solutions. So a typical example of a short-term solution is for CBN to quickly address the issue of foreign exchange. In terms of, are we having a unified exchange rate, or are we floating the Naira to allow Naira to be determined by market forces? That will address so many issues. That will even give us more money. A typical example is that the CBN will now become a player. They can actually buy or sell based on the rate they want the market to have. So by then they said they will even make more money. They can use that money to pay local contractors. The contractors can now use it to liberate the economy. And also, foreign goods will become more expensive, which indirectly will now enable local production, which will now lead to more jobs being created, which will now lead to more people getting more productivity, and it will have a cyclic impact. Another short-term solution is that we need to quickly reopen the borders because it's now becoming counterproductive. We haven't really achieved anything. Export is declining. Import is also, so all of them are more or less declining. So what are we trying to achieve? We've achieved a little with regards to fuel and food, but of course, that is not what we're supposed to, that's not the only two things that we're supposed to look at. So I've given you a typical example of immediate short-term solutions. But of course, no, we are in December now. So what do we do with regard to agriculture from next year? How do we quickly ensure that we prepare Nigeria to really go into farming from next year, from February, March, April, as the case may be? So we are looking at that would be a medium-term solution. Then you now look at the other longer-term solutions. So in essence, all this can be segmented into short, medium, and long-term, and they will all be linked together. And at the end of the day, we will now achieve a better outcome. And let us not forget as well that 2023 is around the corner. And in terms of how do we address the emerging political risk that will come with 2023 election, how do we ensure that the government will make a clear statement with regard to that election, or the APC or PDP, that will help to calm down the economy and the society, and we have more stability so that people can really start investing or even spending in Nigeria again. What is happening at the moment is that many people, once they make small money, they change it into dollars and take it out of the country. So there is no hope, there is no confidence in them. And that is why Naira is just depreciating on a daily basis.
Okay, if we had much time, I would have taken you up on some of the things you said, especially around the foreign exchange. But quite interesting what you also said is we need to look at the 2023 elections that will come up. Don't you think that we're a bit too far? The first question we should be asking ourselves is to have a country between now and 2023, to have a safe and secure country, to have a country right now that Nigerians can go out for their livelihoods and return back home with enough monies in their pockets that can really keep them, sustain them, talking about livelihoods. That's lives, maintaining those lives and maintaining those livelihoods. So once we hasty that, we should be talking about issues of governance now, not politicians, not politics or politicians. I really don't want to talk about this politics right now because the politicians should get down to governance right now, raise all those Agbada, including President Buhari and his team. They should be sweating it out right now.
I agree that politics should not be at the front now. But of course, this is Nigeria. So we need to appreciate the peculiarities of our country and now do what we are supposed to do. And that is why I'm saying that even though 2023 is about 2 years from now, if we don't make a kind of forward guidance statement from the government, from APC, from PDP, the political risk that will come with 2023 more or less have started manifesting. So that is the reason why it is very, very important to address it. I am not saying that it is what we're supposed to be addressing now, but what I'm trying to say is that it will help in building that confidence, in building that hope that everything will be stable. And that will also make Nigerians, non-Nigerians, local and international, to actually say we want to invest in Nigeria. So that both foreign portfolio investors, both FDI, both local investors, we have hope. But at the moment, anybody you tell about investment in Nigeria will tell you, let's hang on and see what happens first. And that is why I'm saying that it's very important to make that critical statement to say a particular one is where will the president be zoned to. So you need to be clear to say this is where the president will be zoned to so that we calm down the nerves. And expectedly, as I said earlier on, it should go to the south and try to the south. Now, in the next 4 years, next year, address all the political and other factors. That will really help to calm the society down. And you're not applying the economic solutions and other solutions you want to address.
Doctor, let's talk about this complicated issue of reopening the land borders. And why I said it's complicated, because some people are for the reopening, some are against the reopening. You stated earlier that the borders should be reopened now. In your own assessment, what do you think we have gained from border closure? Because the rationale for the federal government to close the land borders were based on smuggling, were based on also insecurity issues. Do you think that we have achieved that? And why, in your opinion, should we reopen the land borders now?
As I said before, we've achieved in terms of we reduced the smuggling of foods and fuel in particular. But let's look at it from this way. From Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, imports has moved from 215.75 billion in 2019 to about 59.4 billion in quarter 2 of 2020. Export as well has declined from 2.24 trillion in 2019 to only 445 billion in 2020. So at the end of the day, what we are supposed to ask is, what are we trying to achieve with the border closures? What is the purpose? It is, in the short term, border closure will have been helpful. But of course, you know, it started in August 2019, and it was meant to last about 28 days or 1 month. But it's been there for over 1 year now. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what are we trying to achieve? Have we even prepared ourselves for border closure? The answer is no. And that is why, so if you combine inflation, food price inflation, if you combine the cost of logistics of moving goods through the seaport to other African countries, which takes about 8 weeks, then you combine also the other factors, you find out that we are not really achieving what we are supposed to achieve. Using the trucks takes about 7 to 10 days to move trucks across West Africa. So that's the, and also if we remember that we've also signed to African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which will take effect. The trade in Africa, about 85% is from outside Africa. Then in terms of within Africa, it's only about 15%. What that means is that Nigeria has a lot of opportunity to increase productivity and expand to other African countries. But if you close your border, how will that happen? So in essence, what I'm trying to say is that the border closure has outlived its relevance. It's not really making any sense at the moment. And we're actually losing. And that is why, even though some people will say that manufacturers or maybe some farmers are happy with what is going on, but it's not sustainable. We've done it for over 1 year now, and it's not really bringing out, and we are now in recession. So if it was positive, with other policies of the government, we shouldn't have been in recession. Remember also that other African countries, even with COVID-19, we are growing positively, as the case may be.
Look at this reopening, or the news around the reopening of the land borders is been coming, at least in the last few weeks, from the Vice President, from the Minister of Finance. There's a tripartite committee that was set up by the President to review the issue of reopening the land borders, and Minister of Finance and her colleagues are part of that committee. What do you think that the government should do now in terms of preparation for land border reopening? Since they have that mind, they are going to reopen the borders. Do you see any inkling from government that we have learnt our lessons during the border closure, and things that were happening then, before we close the borders, will not happen again? Or they just go back to status quo, like a government, you know, is the government thinking right now in terms of, okay, if we open the borders, these are what our borders should look like? I hope you understand my question, Doctor. That is as if you just close, you open again. What difference does it make? What are the new things you're bringing on board?
I think that I think I understand your question. Then let me answer it the way I got it. I think that, as I mentioned, we're very active in our policy in Nigeria. We are not proactive. So before you know it, you close the border. Now it's clear that the border closure is not helping. So you're not thinking of reopening the border. I remember one time I argued that one of the reasons government closed the border is that they said that other West African countries must comply with agreements that they reach with Nigeria. And my question is, supposing they comply and you open the border and they now disobey again, or they now circumvent the rules again, are you going to close the border? The answer is that it's not sustainable. So what we are supposed to do, which we've not done, is that we've not prepared the country for the competition with regards to even the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. We are not prepared. Some people have argued that we should ask for 1 year extension so that we can actually get ourselves ready. So imagine what happened in Borno State a few days ago. That is agriculture, for example. So with that kind of situation, many farmers will not go to farm because they will believe that anything can happen to them because there's high level of insecurity in the country. So that's one aspect. I've also argued before that in terms of agriculture, there are certain things that we can do, and we can do clearly and easily, that will help us to achieve certain outcomes. I've also argued that in the economic sustainability plan, that we have about 600 billion naira for agriculture. And I've said that you can actually use just 200 billion to really put Nigeria in a place that it can earn about 18 trillion every single year. So what I'm trying to do is that the government can do critical things in agriculture, in certain areas as well, that will enable the border to be opened so that we can start achieving what we want to achieve with the border reopening.
After commencement, January 21, you've mentioned it. I don't know if to ask this question, if anyone is listening, how prepared are we? Because it seems from your own analysis earlier that you said some people are actually saying that we should ask for an extension to join or to start a year later. But we should also have in mind that the rest of Africa will not wait for us. Even though we are the largest economy in Africa, what AFTA will do is the largest single market. It's a market of 1.2 billion people. So it will not be a market of 206 million people anymore. So if you subtract 206 million from 1.2 billion people, the rest will leave us. That is just a simple arithmetic, in case they don't know. So after commencement in January 2021, how do you think we should approach this matter? Just a few days to January 21, our borders are still closed. Just a few days, we're in a recession. Just a few days, our macroeconomic numbers aren't looking very good. How should we approach it?
The truth of the matter, I enumerated so many factors, and you said that some of them are medium term, some of them are long term, some of them are short term. I agree that they are short term. But of course, there are certain prerequisites that you're supposed to do before you even close your border. There are certain prerequisites you're supposed to do before you join the Continental Free Trade Agreement. And we haven't done it. So a typical example is that with this border closure, even some of the items that Nigerians were exporting have been taken over by other African countries. So even the areas that we are trying to build market share has already been dissipated. So now that we are in January, January is around the corner, we have to join. So what it's supposed to do is that we are supposed to be more effective and more proactive in joining the free trade agreement by doing certain things quickly. I mentioned earlier on, it is very fundamental. You cannot dispute it. We just finished the Economic Summit group, and we had governors in attendance. They all agreed that it is time, it is urgent to devolve powers in Nigeria. We cannot continue with the way the federal government is holding on to so many items in the exclusive list. They need to remove some of them to enable the states to have more power, to enable the state to even liberate the economy, so that Nigerians can actually know that this is where we are going. The federal government through the central bank need to be very clear with the foreign exchange policy and also the monetary policy arrangement. We also need to be very clear with our fiscal policies. I mean, some of these things are not rocket science. They've been done in other countries. I am a bit surprised and disappointed the reason why certain things that are supposed to be done have not been done. You look at a typical example of the fuel. So at the end of the day, our 4 refineries has been what it is over the years. Every time we are doing turnaround maintenance, at the end of the day, what happens? So some of these things should be done and can be done. It requires that leadership, it requires that commitment, it requires that seriousness to really execute them so that Nigerians can. We shouldn't have any reason to be in recession, to be honest. There's no basis for us to be in recession.
How about
because
oil price?
We have all the resources and all the potentials to really be growing positively, whether with COVID-19, whether with NSAS, whether with all these factors, because we have all it takes to really move the country forward.
How about the issue of oil price? Because you say that we should not even be in a recession in the first place, but oil price suffered massive depreciation, at least over the last few months, that it went into negative. And you know that our sole earner is oil. So when oil goes down, we all go down the drain also with it. And the aspect of also the trade policy, because you were talking about fiscal policy and monetary policy and all of that. Where is our trade policy? Our trade policy perhaps should be reviewed. It's not been reviewed yet. I don't know what Minister Adebayo and his team are doing concerning that right now. And just after is by the corner. So those are three bullets.
Let me say, you know, anytime oil price goes up, we rejoice because we're going to make more money. Anytime the oil price goes down, we start crying. And of course, you know, we've been talking about diversification of the economy for many years, for many, many years now. So the question is that COVID-19 brought down the oil price should not be a reason why we should go into a recession. There are other things that we should have done that would have enabled us to go not to be in recession. I've said in this session that Indonesia made about $12.8 billion from palm oil and coconut, Nancy. So I'm just talking about two items. So if you want to move Nigeria beyond oil, you can actually do it. I've actually argued before that let every state in Nigeria plant just 20 million economic trees. If you do that, that gives every state in Nigeria about 500 billion. That will give Nigeria 18 trillion every year. And these things can start in 3 years' time. So it is not rocket science. If you're talking about education, for example, let's even look at education, for example. And they say that we don't have money to manage our schools and all that. Why don't we have a policy and say every headmaster, every principal in every secondary school or primary school, you must plant 1,000 economic trees in your school. That will give every school 25 million naira every single year. Tell the headmaster, take a 10% of it as your own commission for running the school very well. And then use the other money to develop the school. So that means that every school will be viable. And education can actually be free for our children. So some of these things, and there is no school in Nigeria that does not have a landmass that will contain at least 1,000 economic trees. Universities can actually plant 100,000. I'm not sure if you know as well that agriculture can also be developed through creating artificial lakes. These things are possible. They are not something that are so difficult to achieve. So in terms of the trade, we can also, once you do the right thing, the economy will be growing. That will enable you to really ensure that things that we produce in Nigeria are sold and spread out. So, can you hear me?
Yes, doctor, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. So what I'm trying to say that some of these things that we've been mentioning are something that should be done, and they should have supposed to have been done many years ago. Okay. Remember also, let me also mention that before when PNB, when they were campaigning to come into power in 2014, they campaigned on the premise that the country will be restructured, that the powers will be devolved. 6 years down the line, we've not done it. They campaigned on the basis that the economy will be diversified. 6 years down the line, we are still relying on oil alone. They campaigned on the basis that we are borrowing too much. Now we even borrowed and borrowed and borrowed, and we are still looking to borrow more again. So it is not really about every year we come and say the same, and we don't take proactive steps for this. So it's not really, these are the years to be better off than where we are at the moment. And we shouldn't be talking about issues of unemployment, insecurity, poverty rates, as the case may be.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay, I think, Doctor, we'll leave it at that. Many thanks for your insights today. I hope states are listening, because some of the things you've said could just be a bit of quick wins and a bit of mid-quick wins, if you want to say that. Anyway, thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much. Thank
All
you.
right. All right, I've been speaking with Dr. Franklin Ngwu, who is an Associate Professor of Strategy, Corporate Governance and Risk Management at the Lagos Business School.